So when I was an undergrad, I was a freshman in college, and I wanted to go to Harvard Medical School because I was an Indian kid and my parents were doctors, and everyone was screwed to Harvard, and you're so smart. Oh, arre beta, you're so smart. Going to Harvard. I was going to be the best doctor in the world and save lots of lives, right? And then what happened is I started failing my classes. And then like the damage from a single F, like you're f***ed. Like there's nothing you can do, right? So that transcript is forever. And so what I started to, and then it took me time and I wound up there anyway, paradoxically. And then so what I really started to appreciate was like how much time matters. That 1 month for someone who has a mental illness that is out of control, if you are in college and you lose 1 month because you have a depressive episode, that is light in the grand scheme of, we're talking about 12 months, 15 months for some people, even 1 month, one failed test, 1 month you don't go to class, the trajectory of your life is altered. So for me, it took me I started med school at the age of 28, and it took me time to quote unquote catch up. I don't really see it that way. It's all for the better of it. And so what I really recognize is when I work with my patients that they're living their lives and their lives are passing them by. And frankly, like, I don't know that they can afford to wait for me to spend 15 years to do research. It's very noble, and I think it's great that people do that. And the reason that I'm able to do the work that I do is other people, thankfully, researchers have made, not that sacrifice, but they've done 15 years of research so that I can now read that paper. Like, think about how many years of effort goes into one publication that you or I just read, right? And then we apply it clinically. So I think that just an appreciation of time. And like, I think patients don't have time. They can't afford to be sick, mentally ill. It's tough. So that's a big part of it.
Why do you put a heavier weight on time as opposed to the magnitude of impact that research could have longer term?
I think it's just personal. So
that's what I'm saying. Why?
So I think for me, it's just an appreciation of that. And what I see and what we see in our community is like the reason I started doing the work that I was doing is I see a generation of people who are getting screwed by technology. And like what I see around me is that there's lots of people doing mindfulness research, which is great. And what I saw around me was that a lot of people are not like solving this mental health crisis. And I don't blame them. It's just that the institutions can't keep up. So if we think about like my academic mentors, which are awesome and brilliant, and even to this day, I am where I am because of them. Like I even reach out to them on a monthly basis asking for guidance and stuff. So it's wonderful work and it absolutely needs to be done. But I saw that there was work that was not being done, which is that if you look at the mental health right now, people say, there's like people are falling through the cracks. It's not cracks. It's like the Grand Canyon. The majority of people are falling through. So therapists are burnt out, overworked. I'm not sure that psychotherapy isn't part of the reason that I think we see an explosion in the field of coaching is because I think psychotherapy does not address, or we have not been trained to address a lot of issues in a very good way. So if we look at something like dating or getting promoted or achieving financial independence, what I was taught, and maybe this is a sample size issue, but I don't think it is. What I was taught when I was training in psychotherapy is if a patient comes in and says, "Can you help me get a girlfriend?" What do you think the right answer is?
No. So you want a girlfriend?
Huh?
Do you want to get a girlfriend?
Yeah. Why do you want a girlfriend? Help me understand where that comes from. So like in the field of psychotherapy, we as psychotherapists no longer hold ourselves to the outcomes of our patients.
Right. I think it ties back to something you said at the beginning of this interview of we're in healthcare trained to go from negative 100 to 0 as opposed to 0 to 100. And
what happens is a lot of therapists are very good at going from 0 to 100. So even if you look at, for example, the Institute of Coaching at McLean Hospital and Harvard Medical School, Institute of Coaching started by psychologists, started by therapists who focused on positive psychology. So the reason that I went the road that I did is because I saw that there's like no one helping these people and that the existing institutions were not good enough. Student health services isn't good enough. If you go to a psychotherapist, I heard this so many times, someone's addicted to pornography, they're addicted to video games. The mental health practitioner doesn't even ask them, like, do you play video games? It's not a part of our standardized interview. And so what happens is they meet clinical criteria for depression, they get some medication, they go home, they take their SSRI, and they play video games all day. So what I saw was that there's a lot of people doing research, and it's amazing the kind of research that people are doing. But that if you look at any individual institution, whether it's the Office of the Surgeon General, it's great, they do amazing work there, but like they're not shouldering the responsibility of clinical care because that's not their job. An individual therapist is not shouldering the responsibility of fixing video game addiction. Teachers are struggling. There's a lot of people. And so what's happened is our institutions are responsible for their thing. But what's happened is the problems are in those gaps, and those gaps are widening, which is why I think we have a mental health crisis. And this is what's so tricky is I don't think you can blame anyone. I mean, what is the responsibility of like a medical board? It's to do licensure. What is the responsibility of the Surgeon General's office? It's to raise awareness, do policy stuff. What's the responsibility of a clinician? It's to help this person. What's the responsibility of a researcher? It's to do research. But even though all of these people are doing these things, there is a lot of stuff that still needs to be done. And that's what I chose to focus on.
Yeah. I think you gave a really clear sort of architecture, blueprint, if you will, of the current system. But I'm curious about yourself, why you chose, like all of it needs work, you're saying, but you chose the clinician work. So I'm curious why that speaks to you. So
a couple of things. One is I enjoy clinical work more than research.
Okay.
So my first PI at this place called the OSHA Research Center, I told her when I was going to med school, I was like, I'm sorry to say this, but I don't really like research. And she was like, keep an open mind. She says, you may like research. What you don't like is being a research assistant. Right, because I was her research. And she's a brilliant woman. So just an amazing mentor. So I just like clinical work. I like sitting with people. The other thing is I do believe it's part of my spiritual path. So I believe I have a dharma or a duty. The way that I conceptualize my life is like, I'm really lucky. So I got to spend 7 years studying yoga and meditation, like in all corners of India, South Korea, Japan. So I studied with a ton of different teachers, a ton of different gurus. I learned so much different stuff, really high value stuff, transformed my life from being like 2.5 GPA failure to like literally being faculty at Harvard Medical School. So I found it personally very helpful. And then I also had the chance to train with amazing mentors. And I went to medical school at Tufts and like had some just brilliant psychiatrists that inspired me to become a psychiatrist, trained at these amazing institutions. And so what am I supposed to do with this, right? So I have this very unique advantage. The world has invested 15 years into me. And what am I supposed to do with this? So I did what most people usually do. So I'm complementary alternative medicine. A lot of people from famous people and CEOs, and I was in Boston, so HBS and MIT and all these like fancy people who are very wealthy started coming to me. And then I realized that there's like literally millions of people out there that no one is, and these people that were coming to me, like they have no shortage of people who want to help them, right? Because they cash practice, you pay out of pocket, you charge a lot of money, right? And so, but there's no one helping these other people. So I sort of view it as my dharmic, which means duty, or karmic goal to try to disseminate this information. The world has invested like 15 years of understanding the mind from both Eastern and Western perspectives. And am I supposed to use this to enrich myself and fly first class and go on vacations? No, right? I'm supposed to disseminate this, try to help people in the world. And that's what really drives me.